Yo, Jannard ain't the snitch.
We'll see. No fucking way. Check that shit again.
That's the one, Tommy.
When it comes to the back end of any Power season, there are always a few things we can guarantee. There's always going to be a death or two which will shift the dynamics of the storyline, twists and turns which we aren't expecting, and also potentially new characters or the setup of storylines for the following season. So with that being said, we're going to take a look at a few clues from the trailers and what 4 stars posted on social media prior to season 2. Now this video actually stems from one of Gary Lennon's interviews where he said the following: "We've been paying attention to social media and we are aware that a lot of people want Claudia to die and there is a bullet with her name on, but there's a bloodbath. People will die and nobody is safe. If Ghost was killed on Power, then literally nobody is safe." Now he also spoke about how there are 2 bullets, one for Claudia and one for Vic, and we can make a good case for why both of them do need to catch a hot one. So we will be taking a look at some theories and where they could go with the Flynns, and also where we stand with Tommy and Miguel Garcia. When we talk about Claudia deserving a bullet, I think we can make a very long list as to why. But one storyline which has gone very much under the radar for majority of season 2 is Claudia killing Liliana, and I think that's a great place to start. In my videos I always tend to circle back around to the beginning to put the story together, and I wonder if Tommy will do that with Claudia.
You knew it was you, and as soon as I can confirm it, you did.
It has gone very quiet recently around this particular plot, which boils down to a few reasons. Despite Claudia being shunned from Vic and the Flynn organization, she managed to strike a deal with Merkovich, which gained her men and protection. She also made moves with Shanti and Elise, and most recently she got into a business partnership with the Marquez cartel, and so she's in a very powerful position at this moment in time. From Tommy's side, he's been building his territory, he's got this new coalition, he's had to deal with law enforcement, the DMAX situation, and recently he's just found out Vic is a snitch in his organization. So you can kind of understand why this whole revenge storyline around Liliana did go a little quiet. But do I expect them to come back around to it? Of course they will. If they don't do it at the end of this season, then they'll definitely come around to it in season 3, because this is Tommy Egan we're talking about. He will not let Claudia get away with killing Liliana, that's just not who he is. So with that being said, there is a lot to unpack when it comes to both Claudia and Tommy in episode 10. The Liliana situation is something I do feel has to come back round, and Claudia does deserve to catch a hot one for what she's done, but not just to Tommy and Liliana. Just think about what she's done in terms of betraying those around her, saying Walter up to die, trying to kill Vic, and overall just being a snake. But why I felt it was important to give some context around Claudia is because of this scene where we see her running. We've got law enforcement ready to make their move, which is something Stacey Marks teased back in episode 8. She wanted to hit the CBI, so will they get a win, which is very rare in Power. Stacey Marks has been on the hunt for Tommy Egan ever since the beginning of season 2, and I think we all know she won't get her man, especially because Tommy was free to come to New York, which is later in the timeline. But what about Vic and Claudia? We are going to see law enforcement making their move with some gunfire, which seems to be the same place Claudia is at, not Tommy. Now just to add some more context, we all know Stacey Marks forced Vic to naming Tommy as Vargas' killer, but Vic's goal has always been to take down his sister. He wants his sister to suffer for what she did to him, and I still feel there is a twist to the tale when it comes to this snitch situation. I've been saying it all season, it just sounds way too simple where Tommy would find out about Vic being the snitch and then cancelling Christmas. So I do wonder if Vic will actually be able to turn the tables on Stacey Marks and her sister, which is why we see Claudia on the run in this scene. We've all heard Vic saying Stacey keeps moving the goalposts, but what if it's Vic's turn? At some point, you do get the feeling that Vic does have to do something, because he's had his back against the wall for majority of season 2, and for him to survive, which is really looking like a long shot at this moment in time, he needs to pull something out the bag, because he knows what Tommy thinks of snitches.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, I really fucking hate him. Just ain't no torture that's evil and sadistic enough for them. Am I right?
He also saw what Tommy did to Nunez, so could Vic turn the tables and actually give up Claudia instead of Tommy and the CBI? I really do think it is plausible, especially because of this scene where we see Claudia running from the warehouse, which law enforcement are set to raid. Now after episode 7, I also raised a theory, or rather an alternative kind of scenario, which I would have liked to have seen. I would have liked Tommy to have listened to Vic and Vargas' conversation, find out that Vic is a CI. He still could have asked him to kill Vargas, but then play dumb and use Vic to feed law enforcement the wrong information and send them down the wrong path. Diamond and Tommy needed someone on the inside, and there would have been no one better placed than Vic. Now having said that, I do still think it's a possibility because Vic you can control. With Claudia, you can't. She's too much of a threat. And Tommy still needs to get Stacey Marks off his trail, and so Vic will definitely be key. Whether he throws him some wrong information, or whether Vic himself begins to move the goalposts with Stacy and gives her Claudia instead of Tommy, who knows. But I do feel Claudia does have to suffer for everything that she's done, and there are a few ways you can do that. You can torture someone like Tommy did to Nunez, but I think there is something that would hurt Claudia even more, going to jail and rotting there for a very long time. Claudia is someone who loves power and control, and if you strip that away from her, what does she have? What if you put her in a scenario where she's governed by different rules, confined between four walls where everything is controlled from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep? Now that's the way to make someone like Claudia Flynn suffer. Some of you will remember I broke down Ghost's time in jail and how he was someone who loved being in control, but when he was in jail, he had to be James St. Patrick. He was stripped of all the influence, power and control that he had outside of those prison walls, and for the first time in his life, he was vulnerable where he thought it was the end. So the same principles do apply to Claudia. If you want to make someone like Claudia Flynn suffer, a character who really thrives on power and control, then this is the best way to do it. But this also brings me on to law enforcement. Will law enforcement get their win? I don't think they will. I think we've seen enough in the Power universe to tell us there's just a common theme when it comes to law enforcement. Law enforcement have caused some small wins, but in the grand scheme of things, who have they put in handcuffs that have remained in jail for the long term? There aren't many. Cristobal, who's still said to be in jail, is one of them, but apart from that, there isn't anyone else. Now, having said that, I would like to see them taking a different approach for a change, so let's wait and see. If Claudia's running from where the feds are leads to her arrest, then they might actually get a small win, but not the win that Stacy's hoping for. She's hoping for the shark, Tommy Egan, because I do think we are in for a few twists and turns, and this snitch situation with Claudia being on the run is one of them. Now, circling back to the beginning of this video, Gary Lennon teased how there are 2 bullets, one for each of the Flynn's name on, but we are going to have to wait to find out who dies and who survives, and it might even rumble on into season 3. So where does that leave Vic Flynn? Tommy found out that Vic was a CI at the end of episode 9, and the writing does seem to be on the wall for him, especially because we all know what Tommy does to snitches. But I go back to my point about how Tommy does need someone within law enforcement, and Vic really would be the perfect guy. Gary Lennon also spoke about how there have been a few characters who, despite snitching in the world of power, they stuck around for a pretty long time. For example, Andre Coleman. This is something I've spoken about before. Yeah, Vic is definitely a snitch, and at some point he will have to meet his fate. But there are other characters who have snitched in the past and stuck around for a very long time, so I really don't think it is a full-gone conclusion that Vic is a dead man. I for one wouldn't be surprised if Vic does somehow survive season 2. I honestly wouldn't be surprised, because you can't just wipe out the entire Flynn family in one season. So when it comes to the Vic situation, this might surprise a few, but I am leaning towards him surviving and possibly turning the tables on Stacy Marks. Now here's where it starts to get a tiny bit interesting when it comes to Miguel Garcia. This is a scene where he will be saying Tommy Egan is too dangerous to keep alive, and of course he is. Tommy's the one who was behind the hit on his product early in season 2, which he pinned on the Serbian network. He's also in a relationship with his sister Maria. He's been closing in on all the territory, and just like his grandmother warned, his next move would be to take his position. Now if he had any doubt about Tommy's intentions, him turning up to Shay's daughter's Queen Senora and talking business with Shay at Grandma's funeral should have told him everything he needed to know. Now what I feel is a turning point for Miguel to finally make a move is probably his grandmother's death, or because Tommy's made a move on his position, or maybe he's found out about his relationship with Maria. We are coming to a close for season 2, so secrets will be spilled, people will die or be in danger, and the stakes will certainly be a lot higher. Now Miguel has taken a lot of L's this season, and I still think he will be in for 1 or 2 before the season's close. Tommy's been one step ahead of him at all times, and he's actually made Miguel Garcia look like a bit of an amateur. But could he find himself getting one upon Tommy before season 2? And what is he burning in this scene? This actually reminds me of the time we saw Tariq burning the letter he got from Ghost. So maybe it's a letter or a picture, who knows. But with the evil laugh, it does seem like he may have finally got a victory against Tommy, which in my opinion would be finally poised and set up for them to go head to head in season 3. I mean, we can't have Miguel Garcia, who was supposed to be the biggest connect in Chicago, this big bad Mexican drug dealer, fall to his knees. So whatever this is, I do think Miguel could get a small victory by the end of the season. Now with all of that being said, that's a breakdown of a few scenes we haven't seen or analysed or broke down this season. But now that we're approaching episode 10, I do think we have a better understanding of where we are. I do think there is a twist in store when it comes to Vic, Claudia and Tommy's situation. And even though Tommy's been ahead of Miguel Garcia all season long, will he finally strike back? Drop all your thoughts and predictions down below in the comment section. And as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.